I think it's gonna work, Dad.
Well, I got all the lumber I need. There's 32 2-inch by 4-inch, and it's a true 2-inch by 4-inch boards, and they're all 12 plus inches long. So we're gonna go get these things unloaded, dried out, and see what I can come up with to try and make this whole woodyard thing a little bit easier. So stay tuned. Welcome back. Today we're gonna go over why I've got this whole pile of true 2x4s milled up. Got it sitting here and it's been drying out for last couple days, and I'm just going to pick off some boards here and get them cut to some particular lengths that I have drawn up for what I want to do. But in case you missed over on Adam's channel, Hometown Acres, we milled all this stuff up on his sawmill over there, and a little bit of a teaser trying to figure out what we were going to make. Some of you commented on his channel what you thought it was going to be. And I guess today we're going to start with the process of trying to produce a prototype or a working prototype of what I've been thinking about for the past year, and see if we can't come up with something that works. One thing that I wanted to make clear is I'm trying to build this as if I was going to weld it, because ultimately this would end up being all metal, maybe 2-inch by 2-inch tube steel or something like that. But like I said, I'm trying to do this so my joints, my end piece here is going to go into the back side of that. In some places I might need to add some extra support because it's made out of wood, because we're nailing and screwing it together, versus if this ever takes off, then it would be welded out of tube steel. So just want to throw that out there. You guys started wondering, well, why in the world are you doing it this way and that way? It's just mainly to try and mimic what it would look like if it was welded together. At least in my head, that's what I'm trying to see. And then I guess ultimately this is just a proof of concept to see if it'll work. So if you haven't figured it out yet, why it's going to start taking shape here in a minute. All right, so I'm back a couple of days later. I got my son Hunter home from spring break, and he's giving me a hand with this as well. What we're doing is just adding some supports in here because this is made out of wood and not welded. And I only have a screw going through the front of this, holding this upper rail on. Wanted to put some extra support in there, so we're butting a board up against this bottom plate board and that one, tying that together. And we're just screwing those all in there to accommodate. So when we take and drop big logs over where Hunter's sitting there, and the logs rest on these upper rails, these things here are just to keep this from getting pushed down. So this piece here is the other rail of this one that goes all the way across, and it's what our angle rails fall on to accommodate when you cut the rounds. They drop, hit this, and then roll back out of that end there. And you'll see a lot more of that once we get this thing built and put in use, but that's the concept of this whole thing. And we're prototyping it, made it out of rough cut pine, 2 inches by 4 inches, as we said. And I'm just putting some strength things in here to keep it so it works fine with being a prototype, and not an issue for, I guess, proving out the concept on this. So we'll go ahead and get these things screwed in here. So now that I've got this thing all together, as you can see here, kind of wanted to go through and explain this a little bit. About a year and a half ago, I had this idea in my head after looking at Adam's log rack over there on his Yapa firewood processor. I got to thinking, man, that would make a nice bucking station or log cutting station for those of you that aren't into the lingo on that. And what I did was created this little model of what I wanted to build. And now that I got the full life version of it, I guess it's time to test it. But just a quick reference on this. And the way this works is you'll take your tractor with your forks, and that's kind of what the concept was, is to accommodate building this for anybody that does wood. And the minimum piece of equipment they would have would be a tractor with a set of forks. So they can come in here with their set of forks and load up 4, 5, or 6 logs on there. And that was the big thing, is a lot of these bucking stations, you can only load 1 log, cut it, and then you have to hop off, push the rounds off, hop back on your tractor, load another log, set it on, cut it, push the rounds off, hop back on your tractor, and so on. This one, at least it gives you a little bit more time between cuts and everything else, and also loading. So you can put 6, 7, it all depends on what the diameter of the log is. But so you're gonna have to pretend that these wooden dowels here are a couple logs, and this first one here is one that we need to cut. So now I'm gonna have to ask you to pretend that that is the log splitter back there. So you wanna place your bucking rack where all the logs will roll off of it to the log splitter, and you're loading everything from this side. And what that does is it eliminates having to move any piece of equipment. It allows you to just do one inflow motion. So the flow of all this is your logs come in, your rounds go out, they get split, and from your splitter they go to a basket or a dump trailer or whatever. So when you come in here and you cut your log, cut it between the rail here, and it should drop out and roll down to your log splitter. That's the concept of what I want to do, is having each round, as you cut it, it drops down through the rails here. These upper rails are what holds the main log on, and when they drop down through, they roll out to your splitter. So your log lift is on this side of the splitter, if that's the way you split wood, but ultimately for the best motion of how everything would work, you would want your log lift on this side, so they roll to that, put them on the log lift, split them, and then send them on their way through. So that is where I came up with this concept. And this thing is 7 feet wide from here over to there. It's 12 feet long from this point down to here. It's about 3 foot high from the ground up, about 40 inches to the bottom of the rail where those logs will be held. You cut through them. I'm hoping that when you cut through them, they'll drop, roll out, and then you either will pull the next log down or it will index and roll its way down. Some other things that I did with this is I added this sacrificial board here. That's this top board here. So when you do come down through, if you come down through and don't have a good hold of your saw, whatever, it can come down and it can hit this and not worry about damaging the framework of the log rack itself. There's this oddball one here and down here. So it depends on whether you cut right to left or left to right. But let's just, for instance, say that you put a log on this end and you keep it lined up with this end post here. That's what all these marks are, is 16-inch cut lengths. So that can give you a quick cut, or you can run a tape measure down it and mark it. Do whatever you want. But I've set the gaps on all of these to make sure that every 16 inches clears within these rails. And as you go down through here and cut, so I cut this one, it drops, rolls out, cut this one, it drops, rolls out. And you may have to bump the log to get it to roll, but that's just all part of the concept. This particular item here was designed for the everyday guy that doesn't have a whole lot of money to go out and actually be able to buck up logs, get rounds cut up without a very expensive firewood processor and so on. As we keep going down and we get to our last round of logs, and we've got this section here left of that log, which is 3 pieces. There'll be one here, if you look at my black lines where the cuts are going to be. So one here, and then the one here. So if I go and cut this one off, that log is still going to be held by these 3. But then when I move to my next section, if I cut this one off, without having that there, it would have fallen out. 2 pieces of a round wouldn't have been cut and they would have fallen through. So to eliminate that, on each end cut, or the last cut of the log, I put this extra upright in here so it would hold this last one here. And then when you cut up through this one, they both will fall out at the same time. That is the premise of what I'm looking to get out of it, or what it's supposed to do. I know in the build video, you guys might have noticed that there's a gap under here under the floor. Well, that's not because this thing's out of whack. That's because my floor slopes for the floor drain. Back here, what I did with this and why I did this is they're about a 2-inch spacing in between. Yes, it takes a lot of wood to do this particular thing, and you can do everything here out of 2x6s, but I guess when I said earlier, I built this based on wanting to be able to weld this up. I figured you could weld this framework up and then you could make this particular thing to save steel, because you wouldn't want to run a bunch of steel square tubing up there. What you could do is run that and make the expanded metal decking or a mesh decking here, so when the wood rounds hit, they roll down and off. You'd have to build some support under it so the rounds wouldn't completely crush the mesh down up higher up there. But the reality of it is you could make this decking out of whatever you want. You could make it out of diamond plate steel or aluminum or anything like that, if you weren't going to make this thing out of wood. And then I made the tail of this thing stick out further than the top of it, because if you get some build up in here, or the logs start backing up, and you want to bend down and pick them up, while you don't lean up and hit your head on that. One of the other things that I did with this, and I'm sure you've seen it already, is just out of the scrapped wood that I had left, I made a place to put my saw. And reason being is, you get done cutting on here, you don't want to lay your saw back down, because this is where you're going to be coming in with your tractor to load more logs. So you got to have a place to put the saw. You don't want to just set it down willy-nilly anywhere. You don't want to be cutting rounds, have them fall off and hit your saw. So I made a spot. That's where your saw should always go when you're done cutting your rounds. And it's safe. It's out of the way of the front edge of it, and it's out of the way of the top edge. So there's really no way a log would ever hit that, or the tractor would hit it, or you should lose it now that you have a spot for it. Something else I did also that I need to verify is I made like a fork pocket. So this way I can come in with my tractor forks, and then I put a rail underneath here, under all of the slat pieces in there, so the fork tips will hit that. Pick up on here, so you can pick this thing up and move it around the wood yard. Now, with this being wooden, it is a little more flexible. It is probably as heavy, if not heavier, than what a metal one would be made out of, just because of the amount of slats that I did for the ramp down out there. But either way, come in here with your forks, pick this up. It'll lock that thing from flipping forward or up on you. It should be somewhat balanced and heavier on this side, and I made it that way so when you do pick this thing up, that most of the weight is down at this end, so it won't want to tip forward on you. I'm guessing that just about any average tractor would be able to pick this thing up to move it around the wood yard. But then again, that's just a guess. I don't know. So let's get this thing the heck out of the garage. Let's get it down into the wood yard and give it a try. And like I said, it all came from an idea here. And I've showed a handful of guys out there in the YouTube community this little model. And now you guys are going to get to see it come together as an assembly. Okay, so proving out my first concept or my first design, and that is being able to pick this thing up. And it can do it. It's not any heavier than I would bet an IBC tote would be. So for those of you that can pick up an IBC tote with your tractor, you can pick up this thing. For those of you guys that have 41 or 36 inch forks, you should be able to go into that pocket and meet up nicely with this center board that runs all the way down through the middle of that for the support of the forks. When you come in under this, it's picking it up and kind of distributing the load all the way across through there. I can transport this, I can move it around the wood yard, I can take it wherever I need to take it. So you can see I got a bunch of logs loaded on here. They're anywhere from 6 inches up to 8, 9, 10 inches. And I've got some more over here, some bigger ones that I'm going to set on, and we'll cut them down here lower. But I've already found the downfall to using rough cut 2x4 lumber. And I don't think the 4 inch is high enough to give it the support that it needs. And that's why I said earlier, you could probably build this out of 2x6s. And now that I'm looking at this, maybe these main support rails should be made out of maybe like a 2x8 if you're going to do it out of lumber. But if you do it out of steel, ultimately it should work out and you won't break anything. But because this lumber is kind of has its own weaknesses in it, all the weight on this end did kind of split this one. And once I get these off here and cut, I'll scab some boards on here to fix that. And you can see back here where it's kind of drooped down, and the weight of it has also caused or created a little bit of a crack here. Again, this is all green lumber right off of the sawmill, just for demonstration, just for proof of concept. I wouldn't do this with my tractor. I would do this with my excavator because it's so much easier, so much more pinpoint. But I wanted to show you guys that you can do this with a tractor. You can load it on. The reason why I built it this way is I wanted to have all the logs roll to the splitter. Nothing out front, nothing that you had to manipulate or handle after you cut them. And then that leaves everything in front of the bucking station, in front to the tractor, clear. So that was, I guess, the whole idea of doing this is load from that side, cut here, and your throughput goes out. So let's go ahead and get the splitter down here, get the saws set up, and we'll start cutting this and see if we actually have logs that roll out. I'm using my little MS-180C today. I don't need my big 25-inch bar on there for some of these ones that we're going to cut up. And brought the log splitter around. Got about 7 or 8 feet here. Hopefully those logs will roll down and at least fall within this area. Some may roll further, some may not make it down out of there. But really the concept of just getting the logs to roll down and out here to the splitter. Now whether it's a 1-man or 2-man, I could be over there cutting and loading, logs dropping down through. A guy could be standing over here, splitting, throwing them into a basket. Again, I just want to show the concept of whether this thing will work or not. All right, so now you guys can see I got those 7 or 8 logs that were on there cut up, rolled out. Some of them, yes, you have to do by hand and push them out. Not a big deal, but the proof of concept on this, I guess I couldn't be more excited on how it worked. Yes, I do have to do a little more structural support on my main beams. That doesn't concern me as much as the ability to be able to cut them, have them drop through. One thing that I've noticed, and my back's been hurting the last couple months, standing here at a nice comfortable height, cutting through these logs, didn't hurt my back. I wasn't bent over, I wasn't doing that all day. The other thing is as you're walking around carrying your chainsaw while it's running, you're not stepping over logs, stumbling over with a dangerous saw in your hand to where you can trip. You can see all the logs I cut, and you can see how clear it is through here. So it is an extremely safe concept with bucking up logs, cutting them, letting them roll out of your way, and you're still within a safe area. I've got my tractor over here. If I need to load more logs on, I come in off the pile, pick them up, set them down. There's nothing, like I said, in the way that you're tripping over while you're cutting. I don't have to kick logs, I don't have to pick them up, I don't have to throw them. Now I've got them all over there. If this was two-man operation, I could be the guy bucking up logs, loading them on. As I'm cutting, they're rolling down to the guy that's running the splitter over there. So I want to run over the splitter real quick and split up some rounds with the 6-way wedge using the Pro 28C from Wolf Ridge there, just to show how having this setup really works nice. So let's go ahead and get this thing started up and get some of these split. All right, so you guys got to see the whole throughput process of this. Load the logs on, cut them, drop through, split them, load them into a basket. It's a flow. It's things that I've learned when we ran our business, the flow of your work. So I was trying to incorporate that into this. One thing that I do want to mention is when I designed this, I designed it with the concept of using steel. These 2x4s just really aren't structurally strong enough to do what I want. I will come back here and re-support this, maybe put a 2x8 or something a little bit thicker. We're going to run over to Adams and see what else we can get off the sawmill to add a little more support under here, because this particular board here is got a crack in it now. That was from dropping the log on it, and I knew that I could break it if I dropped it hard on there. I wasn't worried about breaking it. I wanted to see what I could do, but the reality of it is I've got to do a little bit more support here and a little bit more support over there. But what I absolutely loved was watching those rounds roll out of there right to the splitter. It eliminated any of the mess that was in front of this stand, and it allows anybody to just come over here and pick up logs and split through them. So I think that worked out really well. I'm hoping that you guys will enjoy this concept. Some of you, if you want, can try to build it out of lumber. I'm trying to get a company to work with me on designing this out of steel, making them and selling them for Joe Blow like me, who doesn't want to spend, you know, tens of thousands of dollars on a processor or things like that. Just looking for a bucking table that works really nice, gets the logs to your splitter, is safe, and keeps them out of your way. So if you like this video, give me the thumbs up. Drop me some comments. Let me know what you thought of this design, good or bad. I really don't care. I want to hear what you have to say. And ultimately, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you get to see more content on this. Thanks, and we'll see you again soon.